9 a.m., and I would like to call to order the teleconference meeting of the Finance-Auditing Committee for Thursday, December 17th, 2020. Before we begin, please note this meeting is being recorded. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
Thank you. Good morning. Director Cochran.
Here.
Present. Director Grosboll.
Here.
Present. Director Moylan.
Here.
Present. Director Yee. Absent. Vice Chair Frederick.
Here.
Present. Chair Sobel.
Here.
Present. And President Parr.
Present.
Present. Thank you. You have a quorum, but you are also a committee of the whole. Just so you know, you have Directors Garbarino, Hernandez, Hill, Mastin, Rabbit, and Tyria also on the line.
All righty, thank you. I would, let's see, you're going to confirm staff, too.
I'm going to confirm staff next.
Thank
yes.
you, yeah.
And then we have Dennis Mulligan's on the line.
Good morning, everybody.
Joe Wire, are you on the line?
Yes.
Thank you. Ava Bauer-Furbish, are you on the line?
Present.
Thank you. Kim Manolius, you're with us?
Good morning.
Good morning. Bridge Manager Steve Miller?
Present. Good morning.
Present. West Division Manager Mona Babata, are you on the line?
Present.
Present, thank you. Area Division Manager Jim Swindler, are you on the line?
Present.
Thank you. And Kelly Hopper, you're on the line?
Present.
Present, thank you. That confirms the staff on the line.
Great. Thank you, Amarette. I would like to remind everyone to mute their phones until after staff's presentations. And remember to unmute when we open up for director discussion. If there are questions, the Secretary will call on you accordingly. After the discussion, we will ask for any public comment before moving on. The pages of the meeting packet are numbered on the bottom right-hand corner. Madam Secretary, would you please introduce the first item?
Thank you, Chair Sobel. Item number 3 is ratification of previous actions by the Auditor Controller. The packet of commitments, ratification, and investment is before you and begins on page 3. Leslie Murphy is on the line to provide her report. Ms. Murphy, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Leslie.
Everyone.
Yep. Good morning.
Good morning. It's great to be here for our final Finance and Auditing Committee meeting of 2020.
Yes.
So as I was preparing, it's a good day on a lot of fronts, and we'll kind of get through that. So as I was preparing my comments for this last meeting of the year, I was really struck by what a monumental year it's been. Certainly none of us could have predicted a global pandemic for 2020, but I think that we've all learned a lot, and I'm hopeful that we'll emerge stronger. So bringing some of those comments back down to earth a bit for our discussion on the financial markets and your portfolio in particular, I think that in a lot of ways we're perhaps in a much better place now than anyone would have predicted in March. The pace of improvement in the labor market and in economic activity in general has been much faster than initially anticipated, so that's a good thing. The Federal Reserve really did a great job in supporting the financial markets, and we really didn't see the true bottom drops out scenario that we may have feared. But we certainly do have significant ground to cover before we get back to pre-pandemic levels. So on page 10 of the agenda packet, let's take a look at the top chart, which shows the yield on the 2-year U.S. Treasury note over the past year. So fixed income investors have really bought into the lower for longer sentiment with regards to interest rates. Now, we started the year with the 2-year U.S. Treasury note at about a 1.5% yield, but since the Fed dropped rates down to 0 essentially in mid-March, we can see that the 2-year U.S. Treasury note has traded in a very narrow and a very low range as investors expect the Fed to hold true to its projections of keeping rates at near 0 through the end of 2023. And to end the month of November, the yield on the 2-year U.S. Treasury note was a whopping 0.15%. Moving on to page 11, unfortunately, while we have made great strides in treating the virus, we have not been able to contain the spread of the coronavirus as well as we would have hoped, since we've seen a third spike in cases here in the U.S., as total cases domestically have topped 17 million, with deaths topping 300,000. However, and here's the good news, there has been much news to cheer on the vaccine development front. Late last week, the FDA granted emergency use authorization for the vaccine developed by Pfizer and BioNTech. That vaccine is being deployed this week, as about 3 million doses are being deployed to frontline healthcare workers. Next on the priority list are residents of long-term care facilities, and those individuals should start receiving the vaccine as early as next week. Also, we've seen some positive developments on the next round of stimulus package. Lawmakers and White House appear near agreement on a $900 billion stimulus package, and just yesterday, congressional leaders from both parties expressed optimism in getting the next deal passed, if not this week, then certainly before Congress breaks for the Christmas holidays. Moving on to page 12, unlike fixed income investors whose hopes are solidly anchored to the Fed's interest rate setting policy, equity investors seem to be much more optimistic, as positive developments on the vaccine development front and stimulus talks seem to buoy investor optimism, and all three major domestic equity indices seem to hit new all-time highs at least every week these days, with the S&P 500 up by double digits year to date. Certainly not something that many folks would have anticipated back in March. Moving on to page 18 of your agenda packet, bringing it back down to earth with regards to the district's portfolio in particular. In today's challenging market environment, PFM's disciplined portfolio management strategy focused on safety and liquidity continues to serve the district well. Your portfolio remains in compliance with California government code and your investment policy, and it remains very well diversified by sector and issuer. We continue to carefully monitor the creditworthiness to protect the safety of all of your holdings with us. And we also continue to monitor the market for opportunities to enhance the earnings of your portfolio. So in November, for example, we saw value in a World Bank note, which we added to your general fund portfolio. Your combined portfolio's yield, excluding LAIF, of about a 1.75% remains very attractive relative to current market yields. And while that rate will fall as older, higher yielding securities mature or are sold at gains, we do feel that our strategy of active management and continuously monitoring the market for opportunities to add value will continue to serve the district well in 2021 and beyond. And that brings me to the end of my prepared comments for this December morning.
Well, thank you, Leslie. Yes, it's a topsy-turvy market situation, but to your point, that we've come through this better than most projected, and it could certainly go in the other direction if the vaccination program doesn't do what we all pray it does. But I think we maybe now can start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, both with respect to the vaccine and possibly more stimulus money coming out of Washington, D.C. So I will ask if there are any board members who have questions.
Director Maston has a quick question.
Yes. Yes. Go ahead, Director Maston.
Yeah, on page 13, what's the definition of small business or small firm?
That is a good question. This might look somewhat familiar to you. This is the Small Business Pulse Survey. It's compiled by the Census Bureau. And I think I last brought this to the group in August. So this is updated with August and then also with November's numbers to show there really hasn't been much change. And I can get back to you on specifically what is included or what's considered a small business. I believe it's with regards to number of employees.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Great.
Sure.
Alice, I have a question.
Yes, Alice, jump in.
So Leslie, on page 18 of the packet, that sector of the portfolio analysis that says LAIF CARES Act, are the CARES sorry? Are the CARES Act accounts that are deposited there, is one of the restrictions what you can invest them in?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that last part again?
I'm looking at the LAIF CARES Act 18% sector of the portfolio, and it's in LAIF right now, and I just wondered if one of the restrictions on that money is what it can be invested in.
This is Joe.
Yes,
I'd like
Joe.
to take that one. Yeah, I'd like to take that one. No, it is not. That was the district staff. So my staff, we decided that when we were getting the money in to open up a separate category, just so that we could put the funds in. So we knew where we were putting the funds. Essentially, there's not an investment difference between it. And in fact, at this point, considering the CARES Act money has been extended, it should no longer be sitting as it is printed. So we will, in the future, you will not see that.
Excuse me, somebody's got not
Yes,
on mute.
I was just going to say, you remember, please, to put your phone on mute if you're not speaking. Thanks. Sorry, Alice.
Would you like me to say that again? Were you able to hear it?
I get the gist of it. If someone else would like you to repeat, that's fine. I'm okay.
Well,
okay.
Maybe Joe, just provide a little bit more color. There was awful noise
okay.
there. Yeah,
that's very true. There was when the district was applying for the money and then receiving the money, there was a desire to have a category where we could just place it into LAIF and know that that's where we were putting the money at the time. However, since then, the district has actually spent that money, and so this account should have been absorbed in definition back into LAIF. There was no reason to do it from an investment purpose or any other purpose. It was just an accounting tool for the district at the time it was receiving the money. So next time you see this, you will see one LAIF category.
Thank you, Joe.
great.
Thank you.
Perfect. Are there any other questions, Madam Secretary? Do you know if any other members have questions?
If there's no more questions from our directors, what I'll do is I'll poll the public line and see if there's any public comments. If
That'd
you
be
can hang on
fantastic.
1 second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Is there anyone on the line that would like to speak on this item? Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, this is Leslie Murphy. I do have an answer to that question regarding the small business survey.
Okay, Leslie.
According to the census.gov website, the small business is defined as a single location business with between 1 and 499 paid employees and at least $1,000 in annual revenue.
All right.
So less
Good.
than 500 employees.
So if you have 499 employees and $1,000 in annual revenue, are you a business? Not kidding. Just playing. Okay.
You can't be a very profitable one, but
yeah, you can't be
yes.
very profitable. Great. All right. There was no. Thank you, Leslie. Have happy holidays, and I know finance folks will be talking to you in 2021.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Alrighty. So let's see. Then we don't have any public comment, as I understand it.
That's correct.
Wonderful. Then hearing none, may I have a motion to ratify the previous actions by the Auditor Controller?
So move.
Wonderful. May I have a second?
Second.
Great. Thank you. Madam Secretary, please do a roll call vote on that.
Thank you. We have a first on item number 3 by Second Vice President Cochran and a second by Director Fredericks. Starting with Director Arnold. Absent. Director Fredericks.
Yes.
Yes. Director Garbarino.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Grosboll.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Aye. Director Hill.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Maston.
Yes.
Director Moylan.
Yes.
Yes. Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Aye. Director Sears is absent. Director Sobel.
Aye.
Aye. Director Stephanie. Absent. Director Yee. Absent. Second Vice President Cochran?
Yes.
Yes. First Vice President Theriault?
Yes.
Yes. And President Parr?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Amaret. We will move on to item 6 since there are no action items for items 4 and 5. Item 6 is to authorize execution of the Sixth Amendment to the Professional Services Agreement with PFM Asset Management, LLC, relative to contract number 2007D7, Trust and Investment Management Services for GASB 45, the OPEB Trust. The staff report begins on page 25, and Joe Wire will present this report. Joe, would you begin, please?
Thank you very much. Yes, this is read by the chair. This is the approval of a Sixth Amendment for PFM's Professional Service Agreement. They do manage the funds that are in the OPEB Trust Fund, and the OPEB Trust Fund is the district's vehicle for saving funds and having those funds take advantage of equities in the market to pay for retiree medical care benefits. The amendment that's before you is for a total of 5 years. It would average approximately $240,000 a year in costs. That number varies by the amount of funds that are in the trust fund, because the fee structure is a percentage of the trust fund assets. The OPEB Trust Board meets twice a year and is made up by the Finance Committee members of the district's Finance Committee. And it has requested that the district board, you folks, the Finance Committee, make this recommendation to the district board to have this trust fund, to have the PFM contract renewed for the 5 years, or extended for the 5 years. PFM is the investment advisor, and the other member of their group is U.S. Bank, another private business, which is the custodian, and it's a small partner. It handles the actual transactions that PFM and does the reporting. It handles the actual investment transactions. They have, during their previous time with the district, provided very good customer service, above average or significantly above average at times returns on the investments, and they have done so at a cost that has been market or below. They have also, in this contract, reduced through negotiation with the district, have reduced the fee for investment services as the funds in the trust grow. So the district trust fund has gone over $100 million now. We have gotten a lower rate on funds that are in the higher cost categories. That will reduce the overall average of the cost the district pays as the trust fund grows. Will be to the district's advantage during this next 5-year cycle. Overall, the cost structure is about 20 basis points for the contracts. The details of those are in the report that's in front of you on the subsequent pages. But that's the general description. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you for that, Joe. Are there any questions about agenda item 6 from board members? I am hearing none. We'll conclude a discussion on this item. Is there anyone from the public on the line to speak to this item, Amaret?
We're going to check the line now. Thank you. Hang on 1 second. We have no speakers on this item.
Thank you. Well, hearing none, may I have a motion to authorize execution of the Sixth Amendment of the Professional Services Agreement with PFM Asset Management, LLC?
So moved.
Wonderful. May I have a second?
Second. I second it.
Great. Thank you. Madam Secretary, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. For item number 6, we have a first for Director Fredericks and a second by Second Vice President Cochran, starting with Director Arnold. Absent Director Frederick.
Yes.
Yes. Director Garbarino.
Yes.
Director Grosville.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Aye. Director Hill.
Yes.
Yes. Director Maston.
Yes.
Director Moylan.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Aye. Director Sears. Absent. Director Sobel.
Aye.
Director Stephanie. Absent. Director Yee. Absent. Second Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
Yes. First Vice President Terrio.
Yes.
Yes. And President Parr.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. That motion also passes unanimously, 12-0. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. We move on to item 7, which is to receive the independent auditor's comprehensive annual financial report for the year ending June 30, 2020. The staff report begins on page 29, and Joe Wire will present this report and introduce us to a member of the auditor's team who will also be speaking. Joe, would you please begin your report?
Thank you very much, Chair. And to the committee, this is your opportunity to speak with your independent auditor. This is an essential step for any finance audit committee each year. The report, it was the link to the report was forwarded to you by the district secretary. It is also already on the district's website. It can be reached just by going to the website, pressing on the district button and then the publications button, and then scrolling down. You'll see it sitting with the other district's budgets and its consolidated comprehensive annual financial report from previous years. So it's there for the viewing. It's a huge production effort each year. This year was made even more significant by loss of key staff member retirement and also then open positions due to the COVID situation. So I would really want to put a big thank you to the accounting staff for persevering and getting this out, and also to your public information staff, marketing, and the GM's office for their support in getting this document out. It was definitely a push this year, as many things have been, as we were all discussing earlier. With that said, it's important. Most important thing is not necessarily hear from me, which you always do, but from Bailey, which is your audit team, and Nathan Edelman, who heads the audit team. He has been on the district audit team for a number of years, but has also been at the partner level for the last couple of years. And he will make comments and take your questions. So with that, Nathan, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Nathan Edelman with Bailey. I'm the independent external auditor. So what you have in the packet, you have the financial statements of the district for the 12 months ending June 30, 2020. I'm not going to walk through the entire document, but I do want to just highlight a few key things. First of all, in Golden Gate, the district produces a CAFRA, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, that provides, it provides a number of financial and demographic statistics above and beyond what is typically produced by a local government. Excuse me. So on pages 19 through 29 of the report, you have something called management discussion and analysis, and that is probably the simplest summary of the entire document in an easy to understand, a little simpler form. And in particular, that's probably one of the most interesting sections. On page 22 of the document is an executive summary of kind of boils down into just a few bullet points, pretty much the results of operations for the year ended June 30, 2020. The one thing I keep in mind when reading that document is the financial statements are a historical document of actual results of information. In this case, from July 1, 19 through June 30, 20, and as we all know, a lot has happened in the past 6 months of 2020, and all of this shelter in place and anything related to the pandemic, all of that as it affects the district is reflected in next year's financial statement. So if you look at the actual statements themselves start on pages 30 and they roll through pages 30 through 36, and just a couple of things that I'd highlight. Current assets exceed current liabilities by about $234 million. That's roughly 1 year's worth of operating expenses, and that's a good thing. From a near-term perspective, that does show that the district is, financially, responsibly managing its operations. Total net position, which is kind of a long-term outlook, total net position was $688 million. But it's important to point out, unlike a corporate operation for local government, most of that, a significant portion of that includes things that really are not relevant from an operating perspective. Within there is capital assets as one example, and that includes the bridge in your case. And you can't sell the bridge, you can't pay people with the bridge. So when you peel away these non-spendable and then other kind of restricted things restricted for very specific purposes, when you peel those away, the net position of the district is actually a deficit $51 million. And that is an improvement over the prior year of $28 million, prior year fiscal year 19. Within that, the most significant individual item is this aggregate net pension liability. That is a single liability of $209 million. And just some context on that, it's not, there's no invoice sitting on the desk within the district. It's not immediately due. It's a longer term liability that will come due as current employees retire over their careers. And that's some context. There's actually two plans within the district. The ATU plan is actually 53% funded. The CalPERS plan is 73% funded, which means that there is a lot of assets on one side, and then there's obviously a larger, longer-term liability on the other, resulting in the deficit for the district. So that is consistent with many other governments, and that's a healthy position to be in. Page 33 has a cash flow statement. Without going into too much details, I'll just point out cash flows were positive for the year. That's another positive operating indicator. Following that, you have notes on pages 37 to 71 of the document, and those notes provide a lot of additional information related to the financial statements. Probably the most interesting is about there's the investment portfolio. There's information in there about the pension plans, the ATU and CalPERS, and there's also information about the district's OPEB plan. There's some supplementary information, and it's after page 71. And then there's that additional information above and beyond the basic requirements, and that's information about historical financial trends and demographic information about the district. The scope of the audit, what we have to do, our task is to confirm that these financial statements that we just high level walk through, confirm that these comply with the accounting standards, that it's reliable, complete and accurate information for board members, for people to make decisions about. We also would report on something called internal control deficiencies. Unlike a public company audit, we don't search for internal control deficiencies, but going through this audit is an invasive process. We ask a lot of questions. We look at a lot of documents. We have a lot of experience doing this and experience with Golden Gate in particular. And it's going through here, we identify internal control deficiencies. And those would get reported out. Those would get highlighted and be noted in the audit. The audit results, there is an opinion page, a couple opinions actually that we have in the report, and I'll highlight some key sentences. It really says that, in our opinion, the financial statements that we referred to are fairly stated in all material respects, and it goes on with a lot of very dry, boring language, but this is what's called an unmodified or clean audit opinion. In fact, we have no internal control deficiencies were identified, and there were no audit adjustments either. And so I know it's a boring thing to read, but this is actually the most exciting thing, the best thing that an auditor can be reporting to you. It means that the financial information that you've received from management that has been used to make decisions, it is complete and accurate, and it's good information. This was a challenging year, obviously, global pandemic during the course of the audit and sheltering in place. A lot of the work had to happen remotely, which is not something that we've done in the past, but the staff in the finance department and other departments that also had to participate in the audit, they were very cooperative. They got us the information. There were some delays because of working from home, but everyone was just helpful, and we completed the audit maybe a little later than we would have liked to, but given the challenges, I think it actually went very well. So with all that, I'm happy to try and dive into the financial statements if anybody has specific questions about them or about the audit, but I'll turn it over to the group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Nathan. And the business about exciting reading and all of that, you delivered that with a straight face, so that's good. No, it's very, very important. By the way, before I entertain questions, I will say that each year when we review these documents, the amount of work that goes into it is incredible. It's always well presented. It's very understandable. We will see further ramifications of the pandemic, I'm guessing, next year. But for this year, this report is excellent. And Joe, did you want to add anything?
No, I think what you said is very true, and I did thank staff up front, because I think it was a very trying year, and I think Nathan mentioned that again, and I do want to thank Nathan and his staff, because they also are doing all what we're doing. They're scrambling, working from home, getting things done, and it's been a slower process, so that's why we're here in December instead of earlier, which we usually come. But as Nathan said, it's done and complete.
Yep.
And in good state.
Right, and well done, good results. So I will open it up to questions from the board if anybody has a question. Okay, not hearing any. Madam Secretary, would you see if anybody from the public would like to speak on this item?
Thank you. We're going to pull the public line now.
Is there anyone on the line that would like to speak on this item this morning? Okay, thank you.
I think that, yep, that's a no.
That's a no.
Okay, thank you. Again, great job, Nathan, great job, Joe. And so hearing nothing further, may I have a motion to receive the Independent Auditor's Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for the year ending June 30, 2020?
So
may I have a
moved.
motion? Thank you.
Also move.
Wonderful. May I have a second?
I second it.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. Madam Secretary, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. I heard a first from Director Fredericks and a second from Director Moylan. I'm going to start with Director Arnold. Absent. Director Fredericks.
Yes.
Yes. Director Garbarino.
Yes.
Yes. Director Grosval.
Yes.
Yes. Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Aye. Director Hill.
Yes.
Director Maston.
Yes.
Yes. Director Moylan.
Yes.
Yes. Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Aye. Director Sears. Absent. Director Sobel.
Aye.
Aye. Director Stephanie. Absent. Director Yee. Absent. Second Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
Yes. First Vice President Theriault.
Yes.
Yes. And President Parr.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. That motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you very much. Importantly, as we come out of that discussion, is the agenda item number 8, which is the status report on the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. This dovetails, but it is, the real world as we see it today. Item 8 is numbered as page 31. If you are following along, Joe, would you begin your report on the status report?
Thank you very much. This report that you see in front of you is, unfortunately, exactly like the one you saw last month. It is a copy. And I'll explain that. It was important for it to be here, but I'll explain why it is. Every December, your board meeting occurs a week early. And unfortunately, the district staff is not able to complete the financial close a week earlier than usual in order to make the time frame for this board meeting. So in order to update this particular report, we need those numbers. And that is also why you see right after this report, there are no financial reports. They will come to you as they do every year in January. So in January, we'll bring both November's report and December's report to your board meeting in January. And that's typically what we do. Most years, that's really sort of inconsequential. Well, this year, as we've been saying over and over again, is different. We still wanted to give you a flavor of what's going on with your close. The financial close did happen yesterday. So I have some information. We've not enough to get your reports out and to get them to you, unfortunately, but I do have some information to talk about. So, so as it said, the report on page 33 is what you remember from last month. The numbers have not changed and not been updated. As the report shows, the district is looking at a remainder of a 37 approximate million deficit, and this takes into account the action that the board took back in November to initiate the potential layoff on January 4th, and unless, of course, additional resources were received from the government, or there was a plan for a furlough that would achieve the same amount of resources for the savings. So that's all remains the same. The quick look at the numbers that we did receive yesterday for the district. The district does continue to run a monthly deficit, as I've been talking to you about each month. In other words, spending more resources than it has. That deficit has been averaging $4 to $5 million a month. Last month was a little bit higher, but if you average the 5 months, so that's July through November, it averages to just about $5 million a month. That's been the operating deficit that the district has, and that's sort of that's the problem the district is looking to needs to solve. That deficit occurs not because expenses are up. As you know, each month I've been telling you expenses are down, and they continue to be down. The problem is revenues tend to be down much, much more. Unfortunately, for the last approximate 8 weeks, our main source of income, the toll revenue, has dropped continuously, a little bit a week, and now we're down probably 15% from our quote-unquote peak, which occurred back in October. That's not obviously a good sign for the district, nor for its ability to subsidize bus and ferry service. Bus and ferry patronage continues to be low, extremely low, and we've not seen it rise. In fact, we've seen it drop a little bit also, not quite to the same extent, but we've seen it fall. It's averaging under 20% for bus and under 4% for ferry of its normal ridership load. And that is those three issues: bridge bus and ferry, and the district's bridge bus and ferry traffic and patronage is clearly the nut that we're all trying to solve in order to get back to normalcy, and that would get the finances back also. And looking at what you see when we produce this report in January, my expectation is that December will look very similar to November because of what we've seen so far through the first 2 weeks. So my guess is this report, and the financials that will come after it in your January board meeting will show that the deficit's probably increased a little bit. our projected deficit probably increased, and that's based, as I mentioned, on this lower than expected bridge toll revenue and bus and ferry patrons, of course. But the bridge toll revenue makes the biggest difference. So I don't know exactly how much. It could, but it won't be dramatic. It'll be in the, hopefully not dramatic, in the $1 million or $2 million range, different than what you see today. But that'll give you an idea of what we'll be facing when we all get together again in January. So with that, if there's any questions, I am happy to answer them.
Great, Joe. And I also wanted to call on Dennis Mulligan for input as well. Dennis?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just want to talk briefly about the potential for additional coronavirus relief funding for the Bridge District. You've been hearing lots of news stories, I'm sure, about the various machinations going on in Washington, D.C. A week ago, there were 4 different proposals that were floating around. Those negotiations appear headed in a fruitful direction. And so I just wanted to remind everybody that at its November 13th meeting, the board approved measures to address the financial cliff arising from the global pandemic, specifically and significantly by reducing costs with respect to layoffs. When the board took the action to approve laying off staff, it was with the understanding that in the event that Congress passes legislation that includes significant and sufficient coronavirus relief funding for the district, or an agreement is reached with the affected unions regarding furloughs that saves the same amount of money as approved layoffs, a special board meeting can be convened so that the board can consider different options. We've had a flurry of discussions and negotiations with the affected unions regarding potential furlough proposals. However, that closure has remained quite elusive. Those negotiations really didn't start seriously by the unions until after your November 20th meeting. However, I'm actually optimistic, and I've talked to a lot of folks in Washington, D.C. in the last 48 hours, that we will be probably convening a special board meeting in the coming week or 2, depending on the timing of the final bill. Congress is actively negotiating on coronavirus relief. Fortunately, we're not a local or state government because it appears they won't get help, but the bill has transit in a bucket with other transportation, and the draft bill as currently put together has $15 billion nationwide for transit. By comparison, the CARES Act, which was passed back in March, had $25 billion for transit nationwide. So it's about 60% of the amount that was in the CARES Act, and that $15 billion is certainly much less than what the House passed in the HEROES Act, which had $32 billion. That having been said, when you dive into the weeds of the various funding formulas, the formulas in the current draft language appear to be favorable for the Bay Area. So we will continue to monitor this, but I just wanted to remind you that we said we would convene a special board meeting. Staff has been in conversations with the board president, but we won't convene any such meeting until the president has actually signed the bill into law. That would be consistent with what was discussed at your November 13th meeting. So in the event that he signs it into law and Congress wraps it up this weekend, a couple of days later, we would convene a meeting and we would present options to you different from what you approved on November 13th. And so there is optimism in the air, and I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you, Dennis. And yes, I've been picking up from D.C. as well a sense of that it's a fait accompli, that there will be something. When it happens, don't know, but that they're very, very close on the details. And if it does have money that eventually comes to us, and we have an ability to not lay people off, that is obviously a wonderful thing, and we'll have to monitor that. And hopefully, we do have a special meeting before the end of the year where we can, make what would be a wonderful announcement about our going forward. Even though the money in question is not nearly what was in previous pieces of legislation, it buys us more breathing room, and that's the whole key. So thank you for that report, Joe. I would ask the board if you have any follow-up questions for Joe or Dennis.
This is Bert. Can I make a comment?
Yeah, Bert.
I also think that even though it isn't the optimal that we would like to see, I think President-elect Biden has said that he's going to act very quickly as soon as he's inaugurated to move up more funds as possible, if possible, especially depending on what the vote is in Georgia on the 6th.
Yes, that is true, and so we could just keep holding out hope that that more stimulus money comes until we can get over this terrible hump that we're trying to get over. Other comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, there's no action that's required on agenda item 8. So at this time, we will move to item 9 on the agenda, which is a closed session. But before we do that, I want to thank everyone for being patient during today's meeting. We will be placing the public on hold for the duration of this item, and we'll reconnect the call after the closed session discussion. Mr. Manolius, would you take us into closed session, please?
Of course. At this time, the Finance-Auditing Committee will go into closed session to discuss some existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9A, specifically with regard to a matter entitled Dennis Koenig versus Golden Gate Bridge District.
Thank you.
All right, give me a second, and we'll put the public line on hold. We're back in open session.
Wonderful. Mr. Manolius, would you like to give us your report, please?
Sure. So the Finance-Auditing Committee met in closed session for a conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation under Government Code 54956.9A regarding Mr. Koenig's case against the district, and the Finance-Auditing Committee has given its lawyer appropriate guidance as to how to handle the claim. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Madam Secretary, would you do a last look at whether anybody from the public would like to say anything at this point?
Thank you. You are too efficient. We flew into closed session so quickly, we actually forgot to poll for the public comment line for any public comments under item number 8. So we're going to actually do both. Item
Okay,
public
thank you.
And item 10 public comments.
That's my bad. Thank you.
No problem. Hang on. Okay, it appears we have 2 speakers this morning with us. So hang on a second. Justine, go ahead and introduce the first speaker.
Wonderful.
Good morning. Thank you. Our first speaker this morning is David Pilpel. David, go ahead.
Good morning. David Pilpel again. Several comments on item 8. The budget tracking report on page 33 has the same bottom line number, $37.48 million as last month, as Joe discussed. Nevertheless, I believe that staff continues to manage revenues and expenses as best as they can under the terrible circumstances. But I want to raise the level of discussion for a second. I think that there are both challenges and opportunities to consider here in bus and ferry transit service. The general manager has been engaged in discussions at MTC about regional transit coordination. The Sonoma County Transportation Authority is reviewing transit consolidation and governance options. I think the operating relationship with Marin Transit that was last reevaluated about 15 years ago, and its associated cost factors should be reevaluated as well. Basically, I think we could consolidate North Bay bus operations into fewer operating agencies, not necessarily one, but at least fewer operating agencies with fewer facilities. We should also consider actually whether Golden Gate should continue having separate bus and ferry divisions. And the district could also consider whether it or WETA should continue operating the ferry service. I am not suggesting that we reduce or eliminate bus or ferry operations, quite the contrary. The idea here is to minimize facilities management, planning, and supervision, and possible duplication that may exist there in order to maximize service. and retain jobs. You could ask staff to summarize these issues for discussion at a future Transportation Committee meeting. And finally, I heard the General Manager's comments, and I hope for a good outcome in Washington and a special board meeting in the next 2 weeks. Happy Hanukkah, and thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you, David. And you make some compelling points that I think we have to think about as we move forward. The other speaker,
I apologize for that.
Okay.
Our next speaker
yes.
Go ahead. Our next speaker this morning is Shane Weinstein. Shane, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Chair, directors. Shane Weinstein, really quickly, I listened to the general manager speak, and what he's saying is just not true. The negotiations started way before then. We all know where that went. I also want to make everybody aware that we have put in a very significant proposal for a furlough proposal, and it has been rejected. It wasn't even given a shake. So I just want to let everybody know a lot of this language that's coming out of Washington right now is this money is supposed to go to payroll and operations. And if it's going to be spent on anything else like capital projects or anything like that, you're going to have to go through the secretary to then assure them that there haven't been any type of furloughs or layoffs. So I don't know why we're in such a hurry, especially when the unions have given a proposal that may not get all the way, but let's all remember that this isn't all of our fault, and we all got to kind of buy in a little bit to this. So I hope that when we do get the money, that we think about if we need a little bit left over, that we all kind of put it into the pot. So I appreciate your time. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
We have no other speakers this morning.
Great. Then just before I take a motion to adjourn, Leslie Murphy earlier pointed out that this is the last Finance-Auditing Committee meeting of the year. I also want to share that it will be my last Finance-Auditing Committee meeting as well. I was not reappointed when my appointment came up before the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors. There will be a new member joining the board from Sonoma County, representing the public interests. And so what I would say at this point is I very, very much appreciate the hard work by staff and led by Joe with respect to finance and finance auditing, to the general manager, to everybody who works for the district. The work of this district is just really, really impressive. And yes, we're in very tough times, and we all have to band together. But through it all, when I look at agencies around the country, I know that this is the best run agency in the country, bar none. And so I've been very proud to be associated with this agency, with this district. I'm going to miss it, but I know it is in competent hands. And so with that, I'll say thank you for all of the work of fellow directors, and I know that someday we'll come out of it. As I was saying to some directors earlier, the sun comes up in the morning, and I know it will again for this district down the road when we get through this crisis. So with that, I'll say thank you to everybody, and at this point, I would take a motion to adjourn. Oh, and one other thing, if I may, and that is I just have to give a shout out to Director Rabbit. He, I think, made a very good case for the district with his board of supervisors and for me, and I very much appreciate it. So I didn't want to forget that note. So with all of that, I would take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that. This is Patty, or I'll second it. I just want to thank you for those words, Brian. Your leadership has been stellar, honorable, and has helped us through what will not be something we'll hopefully face again in the future, but has been a significant crisis, and you've given us hope and vision, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, Director Garbarino. Do I have a second?
I've seconded, and
Wonderful.
I'm not happy. I'm not happy that you're leaving.
Well, thank you, John.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it's been a distinct pleasure serving with you and all the other directors. And as I say, I'll miss you all, but I'm not going far. I'll be around. So with that, I would ask, with respect to the motion to adjourn, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, thank you, colleagues. That concludes this meeting of the Finance Auditing Committee. The time is 9:59. Thank you all.